3 radio program. Good to have you with us on a Thursday afternoon. Good show so far. Colin Schmeling and Eddie Erickson. Yours truly, Christopher Russo, as you get you home here. A little potpourri to get us going, and we'll have some fun. First off, the NBA odds. We've done a lot of NBA today already with, of course, Van Gundy in the first hour. Let me give you the series odds in this first round, and I got a couple that I like from a price perspective and see if you guys agree. The East first, the Wizards, only give you the pluses. You don't need to know the minuses. The Wizards are plus 485. So if you take the Wizards and you put $100 on them and they win the series against the Raptors, that series will begin Saturday, 5:35, game 1. And you ever win, you're going to win $485 to your 100. So it's a decent price. Wizards are dangerous. They'll be competitive. Wall, Beal, Porter, they got some offense. They have had good success against the Raptors in the past. Van Gundy seemed to think they were dangerous too. They're erratic. You never know what you're getting out of them, but plus 485 for Washington. That was series price number 1. This is the East. Number 2, the Heat against the Sixers. That series begins tomorrow night, Saturday night in Philly. That's game 1 there, and the Heat are plus 395 against Philadelphia. I like the Sixers are less of a favorite than the Raptors are, I think, because of inexperience. The Raptors have experience. They won a first round last year. Heat are plus 395. I would take the Wizards. If you gave me a choice, I would take the Wizards because they got some dangerous players. The Heat will play hard and they'll be competitive against a less experienced team, but I think Philadelphia will prevail because they got better talent. The Wizards, if they keep their nose to the grindstone, and Wizard, Beal, and Wall are as good as DeRozan and Lowry. That's all there is to it. If anybody says differently, you're crazy. They're as good. Now, they don't have home court. They're not as consistent, but they're as good in the backcourt. So I like the Wizards price better than I like the Heat price. That's number 2. The Celtics and the Bucks, they will start their series Sunday at 105. That's on TNT. And the Bucks in this series, and I'm surprised, I like the favorite here. More. Bucks are plus 115 and Boston is minus 135. Now, the Celtics, I understand they got 2 big injuries. We know no Irving and no Hayward. I get that. But I would not pick against Brad Stevens. Don't forget, last year they had all sorts of issues with Isaiah Thomas, banged up. They were in trouble against the Bulls, down 2-0, and they came back and beat them. I understand they got injuries and they're not whole. Marcus Smart, I get that. But minus 135, that to me is I would not take the Bucks that plus 115. I like the Celtics at minus 135 if I had to take one there. And then this last one in the East, this is a tricky pick. I would run with it though. It's plus 500. Indiana plays Cleveland. That's the 3:35 ABC game on Sunday, game 1. And the Pacers are plus 500. I mean, my goodness gracious. Cleveland does not play defense. We heard Van Gundy tell us that explicitly. I know LeBron, and he's the best player, but Indiana only finished 2 games behind him. Indiana had a good regular season record against Cleveland, and plus 500. I mean, think about it, folks. They are the biggest underdog in the Eastern Conference, and they won 48 games. And Cleveland is a little vulnerable. They are a bigger underdog than the Wizards are. They're a bigger underdog than the Heat are. And they're obviously a bigger underdog than Milwaukee is. I tell you, the Pacers at plus 500 is not a bad price. That's the East. The West, I don't like the first one. Golden State is, the Spurs are plus 850 against the Warriors. I just cannot see the Spurs winning this series. I don't care about Curry. And the Warriors are a huge favorite, minus 1250. The Warriors are a bigger favorite, the biggest favorite in the series with the Rockets. Minus 1250. You can't take the Spurs there. That game is Saturday at 3:05. That's series number 1 in that conference. Series number 2 in the West, which is something that you maybe could think about if you wanted to. Jazz, they will start Sunday at 6:30 against the Thunder. They're plus 120. Now, that is not a great price at plus 120 against Oklahoma City, but the Jazz did not play well against the Thunder in a regular season. But I think the Jazz may be a little bit more of a together team than the Thunder. So though the price isn't great, you'd rather have it at 150. 120 for Utah. You bet 100 on them, win the series, you win 120. It's not terrible. I mean, I could see Utah winning the series. It's a 6-3 series. Again, I don't trust the Thunder entirely. They're dangerous, but I don't trust them. Lost first round last year to Houston. I could see Utah. That's number 2. Number 3 in the West, and this is the Portland series with the Pelicans. This is one Van Gundy liked a lot. This is Saturday night, 10:35, game 1. And the Pelicans are plus 165. So that is a solid underdog. And as Van Gundy said, if you missed him at 3:30, every night they bring the best player to the game, and that's Antonio Davis. Every night he is the best player. Lillard's good. We know how good C.J. McCollum is, but Anthony, I said Antonio. I'm thinking of the old pacer. Anthony Davis, we know how good he is. Plus 165 on New Orleans. Now, you never completely trust New Orleans, but they did finish the season well. They beat Golden State. They beat the Spurs. They beat the Clippers. Not the worst thing at plus 165 against the Trailblazers in that first round. The last price is the Timberwolves. I don't think you can play it. Plus 1375. Now, that's a lot. That's a huge number for a franchise that has Butler, Towns, and Wiggins. They got firepower. But you're beating the Rockets. Plus 1375. There might be a better price down the road against Houston. I'm not sure if I like that one. The 3 I like, I could see Utah. I could take a run at the Pacers. I could see taking the Celtics as a favorite. And I think New Orleans over Portland. I think those are the 4 you could take as far as the NBA is concerned. All right, the NHL last night, there were 3 games. You heard Sean tell us about the Penguins. Jumped all over the Flyers, not competitive. Winnipeg led, then trailed, third period at home, scored 2 goals, and beat the Wild 3-2. Winnipeg's got a big offense. They got a lot of young players. Their goalie probably not as good, but they got a huge offense, home ice. Here's the interesting thing about Winnipeg. That's their first ever win as a franchise in the postseason, which I did not realize. They've been in Winnipeg on 2 different occasions for a period of time, and that's the first time they've ever won a playoff game. That is surprising to me. First time they have ever sat there and won a playoff game. They beat the Wild last night 3-2, and then the Lightning beat the Kings 1-0. Lightning, a quick, good transitional team. That's they won the game. They got a goal early. Quick will keep the Kings in it. Lightning might want to solidify their regular season divisional championship and prove to the world that wasn't a fluke. They win that first game. I took the Kings. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see here down the road. 5 games tonight. The other series begin. I like the Toronto-Boston series specifically. That's at 7 o'clock. So that's the hockey that we want to get you up to date with after the full day yesterday. Source in the New York Daily News. I don't know where it's coming from, and I don't think he's going to take it. The Knicks will reach out to Jay Wright to see if he's interested in becoming their head coach. Now, again, I would think there'd be a little more to this if Jay was from New York. I don't know where his... I know it's Madison Square Garden and all, but Jay's from Pennsylvania. He's not from New York City. He is from Pennsylvania, so I don't know how he feels about that. He turned down Philadelphia on more than one occasion. I'm sure they asked him if he was interested in going to Philly, coaching the 76ers. He's got a second championship now. Bridges and Brunson go play in the NBA. He's in his mid-50s. I think he'd be a great NBA coach. He's got personality and everything else. And he knows to stay out of the way, but I don't know. I mean, that's a rough scenario with the Knicks. Now, he wouldn't get fired. He'd be there for 5 years. He'd have the chance to grow. They'd have to give him a ton of money. They'd have to give him, $40 million for 5 years, something like that. I know it sounds like a lot, but that's what he's going to take. I don't know if I would be surprised if Jay did it because the team is so bad. But that's something that is floating right now with the Knicks. They let Hornacek go. Obviously, Vogel fired 2 down in Orlando. And the Knicks let Hornacek go. I love Hornacek. Not his fault. I know everybody wants to sit there and say they didn't play defense, they didn't do this, didn't do that. Knicks stink. I mean, let's be honest. Knicks are a horrendous team. A team put together horrifically, partly by Phil Jackson. Mills and Perry, the new regime, have not exactly been, Red Auerbach and John Volk. So I'm not sure how much you can blame Hornacek. Only got 2 years. Knicks hire coaches left and right. Lenny Wilkins, Mike Woodson, Derek Fisher. I can go on and on and on. Then that's what the Knicks do. is hire these coaches, and they've never of them been any successful. So we'll see how they handle it here in the last 15 years. They've been a mess. See if Jay Wright nibbles at that. I would be surprised if he does, but it's something that I suggested, believe it or not, a couple weeks ago after he won. Would this be the time for Jay to make the run? There are worse places to go than New York. That's for sure. The Knicks. Now, the team is terrible. But I do think he'd be a good pro coach. I do think that. And then finally, Kaepernick, I guess that Adam Schefter said that the Seahawks, were going to invite him in for a chat, and then first asked him about kneel down, and Kaepernick says, I'm going to kneel, and then the Seahawks passed. Well, whether that's true or not, I'll have to assume it is. That decision is being made. They're not making that decision without going through Paul Allen. So the idea that Paul Allen wants to be, Mr. Hip and Mr. This, Mr. That, that's out the window, because Paul Allen, if he wanted Kaepernick to be discussed with his team, he would tell his John Schneider and Pete Carroll. And I understand that the Seahawks don't want to get in a mix there, and they don't want any distractions. They dealt with that Bennett thing. I don't know. Maybe it's not true, but that's been a big story now on ESPN today. So don't let Allen pass the buck. If Allen wants Kaepernick to be on a team, he could tell Carroll and Schneider, the GM, hey, you know what? Whether you want him on a team or not is a football decision. I won't argue. But you're not keeping him off the team because he doesn't kneel. Because he does kneel. That's not fair. And Allen didn't do that. So don't let Allen play Mr. God here. And I'll say this, to be fair. I don't want to hear anybody yelling. He owns the team. If he doesn't want you on a team because he doesn't want you kneeling during the national anthem, he has every right to do that. So he owns the team. That is his money. There's no rule that says that owners have to allow players to express themselves. If Paul Allen, and he made the decision, not Carroll and not Schneider, if Paul Allen decides and he tells Carroll over breakfast with granola bars and Bigelow tea, and he tells, if you want to bring him in here, I got no problem with it from a football perspective, but he's not kneeling. That's Paul Allen told Carroll that, bottom line. And I don't have now, don't let him say anything different. I don't have a problem with it if that's what he did. He owns the team. It's his money. It's his franchise. His rules. No problem. 16 after the hour, we continue. Mad Dog.